For 5,000 years, a single bean supplied more protein than meat, withstood deadly desert heat, and kept entire civilizations alive. Then, almost overnight, it was erased from our farms and memories. Why did we abandon the most resilient survival seed ever engineered? What secrets are buried in its disappearance? The answer starts in the ruins of ancient storage pits. Archaeologists working in the arid valleys of central Mexico uncovered evidence that survival in these harsh landscapes was never left to chance. Beneath ancient layers of dust and stone, they found storage pits, dug deep into the earth and sealed against insects, rodents, and moisture. Inside, the remains of beans, maize, and squash had endured for centuries. Radiocarbon dating placed some of these caches at more than 2,000 years old, a testament to deliberate planning in a world where famine was always one failed harvest away. The beans preserved in these pits were not just any food. Dried and stored in darkness, they retained a nutritional profile that modern analysis still finds remarkable, up to 25 grams of protein per 100 grams, comparable to the best cuts of meat, but requiring a fraction of the water and no pasture. For people living in a land of searing heat and erratic rains, these seeds offered not only calories, but the building blocks of muscle, blood, and immune strength. The scale and care of these storage pits show a society thinking beyond the next meal. These were not emergency stashes left by foragers, but organized reserves, insurance against drought, war, or blight. The presence of protein-rich beans in sealed long-term caches signals a strategy of survival rooted in knowledge passed from one generation to the next. Long before the age of laboratories and gene sequencing, these ancient farmers recognized the value of a seed tough enough to outlast both the desert and time itself. In 2021, a team of genomics scientists published a sweeping analysis of the tepary bean's DNA, drawing samples from across its wild and cultivated range. Their findings revealed a genetic signature that leaves little room for doubt. All modern domesticated tepary beans descend from a single founding population in the Sonoran and Sinaloan desert margin of northwestern Mexico. Unlike crops with tangled histories of multiple domestications, such as common bean with its distinct Andean and Mesoamerican origins, tepary's genome forms a tight cluster, nested within the diversity of wild desert beans from this region. The data show a clear domestication bottleneck. Wild tepary populations still hold a wide spectrum of genetic diversity, but the cultivated beans share long stretches of identical DNA, evidence of a sharp reduction in founder numbers. In demographic models, this pattern is consistent with a single, primary domestication several thousand years ago, likely in the mid to late Holocene, though exact calendar dates remain out of reach without ancient DNA. Within these domestication blocks, the team identified hundreds of genes under strong selection, most tied to traits that matter for survival in the desert: heat and drought tolerance, rapid flowering, and reliable seed set in short, erratic, rainy seasons. The domestication genome also carries the hallmarks of deliberate human choice. Early farmers favored plants that could thrive on minimal water, mature quickly, and deliver dense nutrition in small, hard seeds, traits that now stand out in the modern crop's DNA. No evidence points to parallel domestications elsewhere. The cultivated tepary's closest genetic relatives are wild beans from the same Sonoran corridor, and no deep splits or divergent lineages appear within the crop. This single origin story, written in the genome, confirms what indigenous farmers practiced for generations: a focused experimental approach to breeding a survival seed long before the science could measure it. Today, the blueprint of that ancient decision-making is visible, gene by gene, in every handful of tepary beans harvested from the desert. At the heart of the tepary bean's survival is a set of biological defenses rarely matched in the plant world. When daytime temperatures soar past 110 degrees Fahrenheit, most crops wither. Tepary beans persist, relying on a suite of molecular adaptations. Inside their cells, they accumulate amino sugars and protective compounds that stabilize proteins and membranes at temperatures up to 118 degrees Fahrenheit. These molecules prevent the breakdown of essential enzymes and keep the plant's metabolism running when heat cripples other species. But survival is not just a matter of chemistry. The tepary leaf responds to the desert's punishing sun by folding along the midrib during the hottest hours, shrinking the surface area exposed to direct light. This simple movement slashes water loss, allowing the plant to conserve moisture even as the soil cracks and the air dries out. When night falls and temperatures drop, the leaves unfurl, maximizing the capture of any stray dew and resuming full photosynthesis. Beneath the ground, tepary roots form partnerships with specialized bacteria known as rhizobia. These bacteria colonize nodules on the roots and convert nitrogen from the air into forms the plant can use, eliminating the need for synthetic fertilizers. In depleted soils where other crops strip away the last reserves of fertility, tepary beans rebuild what is lost. This self-sufficiency allows them to thrive in fields abandoned by less resilient staples. Each of these traits, molecular shields against heat, physical strategies to save water, and the ability to restore soil, combine to make the tepary bean a rare example of a crop that can endure and even prosper where others fail. Fields carved into dry washes, known as ak-chin, transform the Sonoran Desert into a landscape of survival. After a single monsoon rain, Tohono O'odham farmers would plant tepary beans in the moist soil, trusting that the crop would mature in just 60 days, often before the earth had fully dried. These systems required no irrigation beyond the rainfall itself. Even in years when the desert received as little as 3 inches of rain, harvests were possible. The beans' rapid germination and short growing season meant that food security was not left to chance, but engineered into the rhythm of the land. By the early 20th century, regional records and oral histories describe a thriving trade. Tohono O'odham farmers produced an estimated 1.5 million pounds of tepary beans each year, moving them by wagon and rail across Arizona, Sonora, and as far as the Great Plains. This crop supported not only local households, but also a regional food economy, with surplus beans exchanged for tools, cloth, and other essentials. The health impact of this system was profound. Nutrition studies and clinic records from the early 1900s show that communities relying on tepary beans and other traditional foods had almost no cases of type 2 diabetes. The beans' soluble fiber slowed digestion and stabilized blood sugar, while their low glycemic index protected against the metabolic spikes common with processed foods. Recent laboratory research has identified protease inhibitors in tepary beans that can suppress the growth of certain cancer cells, an early sign that this food functioned as medicine, as well as sustenance. Today, farmers like Ramona Button carry this legacy forward. Her stewardship of heirloom seeds and traditional planting methods stands as living proof of a system that once turned desert hardship into abundance. What was lost when this crop was suppressed was more than a food. It was a way of living that safeguarded health, community, and resilience. Spanish missions in the 17th century swept across the Sonoran Desert, bringing new crops and strict controls. Wheat and barley replaced the tepary bean in mission fields, not for better nutrition, but for easier taxation and tighter management. Mission journals from 1694 dismissed the native bean as too wild to control, reflecting a broader intent to erase indigenous farming systems. Over the next 2 centuries, colonial authorities and later government policies enforced these replacements, linking food production to tribute and dependence. After World War II, the arrival of mechanized agriculture accelerated the collapse. Federal subsidies and crop insurance programs favored uniform, high-yield commodities: cotton, wheat, and eventually soybeans. The tepary bean, unsuited to industrial machinery and excluded from subsidy lists, vanished from most fields by the 1950s. A food system that had endured for millennia was pushed to the margins in a single generation, leaving only scattered seeds and memories behind. In the summer of 1974, drought scorched the Southwest, and fields of corn and soy withered under relentless heat. Amid the crisis, field agronomists turned to a crop nearly forgotten by industrial agriculture: Tepary beans were planted in trial plots outside Tucson and in Sonora, subjected to temperatures climbing past 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Where soy failed, tepary delivered a full harvest, using less than 1/3 the water. Decades later, in 2019, updated trials confirmed the same resilience, high protein yields, minimal irrigation, and survival through heat that left other crops barren. Climate models now warn that over 30% of global grain yields could collapse by mid-century. The tepary bean, tested and proven in the desert, stands ready as one of the few crops capable of meeting the challenge. The question is whether we will act before the window closes. As record heat and drought threaten global harvests, tepary beans still thrive where other crops fail. Their resilience is not ancient history. It is a blueprint for survival in a changing climate. The question now is not if we can reclaim this knowledge, but whether we will before necessity decides for us.